Tonight we're looking at the King of the North, Little Horn, and the Beast. One of my most politically incorrect presentations. Here goes. Last time, we started from the time of Daniel, and we found that Daniel's prophecy goes all the way to the end of sin and suffering. We have a king of the north and a south. They go through phases, Greek, Rome, etc., along the line. We ended up at the time of Jesus in the Roman Empire. Now, whenever the current king of the north attacks the rising power and loses, we get a new king of the north. And it's often a general, not the king of the north, that takes the old one down, and then the new king of the north comes on the scene. But of interest here, Rome attacked Jesus. I have a simple question. Who won? Jesus or Rome? Kind of obvious, isn't it? On Friday, it looked like Rome won because Jesus was dead. Rome was alive. But on Sunday, well, you've got these 100 Roman soldiers that have been given a really easy weekend duty. All they have to do is keep a dead man dead for 3 days. What a job! Keep a dead man dead. If he gets up, to stab him, put him back down. This is hilarious. They didn't think it was so hilarious when an angel flashes down, flips the stone aside, is blinded by this bright light. They fall over like dead men, and they watch Jesus. They can't move, they can't say anything, but they can see Jesus walk away. He's definitely not dead. And they couldn't stop him. They get up and they run into town, and you think they were running into town, we won, we won. They're going into town, you guys have a big problem. He's not dead. So, who's the next king of the north that's going to be in some way related to Jesus, but also to Rome? Because remember, the Rome goes from legs of iron to feet of iron and clay. So it's going to have something to do with Rome, but it's going to have something to do with Jesus as well. Let's keep going. What power follows Rome as the next king of the north? Historically, Rome, just like Greece, splits into many pieces, and Daniel splits them into a north and a south. The Greek Empire, we had Seleucid north, Ptolemy south. Jerusalem gets caught in the middle. Roman Empire, we end up with an Islamic south and a Christian north. If you doubt it, check out the Crusade history. Jerusalem gets caught in the middle. Really pretty simple. It's the same thing all over. There are 3 conflicts: the Crusades, the Ottomans, and the time of the end. All 3 of them show up in one verse, Daniel 11, verse 29. At the appointed time he shall return and go towards the south, he, the king of the north, but it shall not be like the former or the latter. Let's see, you had a former one, you have the current one called the appointed, and you have a latter one. My count comes up, that's not too hard, that's 3 of them. And the first one and the last one are going to be kind of simple. And what I've noticed, historically and prophetically, the king of the north gets control of Jerusalem in the first and the third, and he doesn't in the second. So the first and the third are alike, the second one's different. Yeah, that's one of the things when we switched into PowerPoint, those blue ones keep popping in. I know how to fix that, though, for the next part. Patrick Buchanan said this in 2011. As for a climatic conflict between a once Christian West and an Islamic world that is growing in numbers and advancing inexorably into Europe for the 3rd time in 14 centuries. 3rd conflict in 14 centuries. Let's see. There are 3 conflicts in Daniel 11, and the 3rd one is the final conflict. What Patrick Buchanan doesn't know, we're entering the 3rd and final conflict, and 14 centuries is since the breakup of the Roman Empire. Daniel is right on, never misses. That's always exciting to me. So we're looking at this time of the divided Roman Empire, the feet of iron and clay, the 10 horns with a little horn amongst them. And if you take a look at Daniel's prophecies and the rest of the prophetic message, you find out that the king of the north of Daniel 11 is the same as the little horn of Daniel 7 and 8. As a matter of fact, Daniel 11 is part of the interpretation of Daniel 8 in Daniel's messages. So king of the north and little horn are the same, but the man of sin in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 is the same as the little horn or the king of the north, and the beast of Revelation 13 is the same as the king of the north or the little horn, etc. They're all different names for the same power. People say, how do you know that? Well, we're going to look at their descriptions. They're the same. They do the same things. They cover the same time periods. So, well, why wouldn't the Bible just all call them by the same name? Because each one of these names describes a different aspect of what it does. Have you noticed that Jesus has all kinds of names in the Bible? Lots of names in the Bible. You have the Lamb of God, the Rose of Sharon, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, Emmanuel, meaning God with us. There's all kinds of names for Jesus, and they all say something else about what Jesus does for us. These all say something else about the other side. All right? Now, let's take a look at what we have for indicators. We're going to look at 15 points of indication that tell us who this power is and what it does. Number one, it starts from the time of Rome and lasts all the way from Rome to when Jesus delivers his people. So it goes a long time. Talking about the king of the north. And he shall be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. So that's the time of Jesus. The next verse, and after the league is made with him, when the iron and the clay come together, a league is made, he shall act deceitfully. How long does that power last? After attacking Jesus, we get a new power coming in, and it lasts all the way to verse 45, when he says, yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help him. The next verse, 12:1, tells us what's going on at that time, and at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. So it starts sometime just after the time of Jesus and lasts all the way to the coming of Jesus. That's a pretty long time. It's more than any one person's lifetime. So the king of the north is not just one person. Like all the rest, it's powers. The little horn, I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them. I watched till the beast was slain and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. So it keeps going, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and destroy it forever. Then the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the saints of the Most High. So the little horn starts as the Roman Empire breaks up into the 10 parts, and it lasts all the way down to the destruction of that power when the saints are given the kingdom. Have God's people been given control of this earth yet? Definitely not. When I look at the political divide in this country, I know God's people aren't in charge yet. The man of sin. That's interesting. Going to have to figure out what's happening on that transition. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains will do so until he's taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. So that beast starts at the breakup of Rome and lasts all the way till it's destroyed at the brightness of his coming. The beast of Revelation. I saw the beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, like a bear, and like a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. And I saw the beast, the kings of the earth and their armies, gathered together to make war against him who sat on the horse and against his army. Then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet, who worked signs in his presence, by which he did these signs. And they received the mark of the beast, who worshipped his image. These two were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So the beast starts again from the Roman Empire. It follows after Rome. Daniel's description there, it had symbols of all those animals that led up to Rome. It starts from there, and it is destroyed with burning brimstone, and etc. And that's at the coming of Jesus. So all of them go from Rome all the way to deliverance. So we're going to look at these marks of identification. Who is this king of the north power? Luther, Calvin, Wycliffe, the Wesleys all taught the same thing, that we're talking about. The little horned beast is the Roman Catholic papal system. Hear me carefully, not Roman Catholic people, many of which God calls his people in Revelation 18:4. All right? Do not go out of here saying this guy thinks that Roman Catholics are lost. I actually think there are going to be more Roman Catholics in heaven than from any other group. Why? There's been more of them for more years than any other group. And so I'm expecting in my neighborhood in heaven, there's going to be a lot of former Catholics. There'll also be some former Baptist, some former Adventist, some former Methodist, former lots of things. Notice I'm calling them all former. Because in heaven, the barriers are gone and we're just simply God's kids. Won't that be fun? I'm going to enjoy that one. But Catholic people have often been the victims of the human rights violations of the papal system, the Catholic system, for many years. Right now, there's a tremendous amount of Catholic dioceses going into bankruptcy, and that's not because the priests were nice to their people. They're being sued by their own people. All right, next one. Does the papacy fit this? Did it start from the time of Rome and go all the way to deliverance? I challenge you to find out how many other organizations have been around since the time of Rome and are still here. There's only one that fits it. But whatever power this is, it has to fit all 15 of the characteristics. There's the first one. Second one, it would become deceitful when the league is made. And after the league is made with him, he shall act deceitfully. Oh, when does the league of iron and clay come together? That's when Constantine, in the early 4th century, decides to stop fighting against Christianity and join Christianity and the pagan Roman Empire into one. Rome and Christianity get united. A league is made. Take a look at the coin that he minted. If you have any doubt that he knew what he was doing, here you have the cross on the left, you have the sun on the right, you have the pagan sun worship and the Christian cross, and in the middle you have Sol, the sun god. He's admitting that he's bringing Christianity and paganism together. But 20% of his kingdom was Christian and 80% was pagan. Which one gets the more play on the coin? Well, that one up the middle, the pagan sun god, obviously gets the greater amount of play, right? He's a good politician. He gives the majority to the pagans and a part to the Christians, and the Christians bought into it, and they united with the system. It was a travesty. Here's why. Up until Constantine, Christians were willing to die for Jesus, but they did not kill for Jesus. And the gospel went to the known world. They couldn't stop him. But as Constantine takes control, they start killing for Jesus. He turns his armies into Christian armies, and they now try to spread Christianity by the sword. And what happened to the mission outreach of the Christian church? It died. It doesn't come back until the 1700s when Moravians are willing to send wave after wave of Christian missionaries out, that 90% of them died in their first year of service, and every year they sent more. When Christians were ready to die for Jesus again, the mission movement came back. I don't remember where Jesus ever said, I want you to go out and kill for me. But he said, take up your cross daily, be ready to die for me every day. That was the real travesty of what happened. But it's right on the coins of those days. Your friend Stan Hudson, that's his coin. Did it become deceitful? The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth that they might be saved. Yep, they became deceitful. You see, when Constantine makes this league, he moves out of Rome and moves to Constantinople, and the Pope takes over in Rome. And you know what the Pope comes up with? It's called the Donation of Constantine. It's what is now known to be a forged document that gave power and authority to Rome. Constantine didn't write it. If you used a forged document to give yourself power, is it with deception when the league is made? Daniel never misses. Never. It would be small but powerful, for he shall come up and become strong with a small number of people. That's Daniel 11. The little horn, another horn, a little one coming up among them, speaking pompous words. So it's going to be a small but powerful group. If you were to go to the Vatican today, you would find a very small kingdom, just over 100 acres. But I would suggest you would find it to be one of the most powerful kingdoms on this earth. The U.S. exchanges ambassadors with it. If the Pope gets upset, he can really get the world's attention. You know the President of the United States gives the State of the Union address, right? Who gives the State of the World address? The Pope does, and diplomats from all over the world show up every year for the State of the World address at the Vatican. It will be peaceable and become rich. He shall enter peaceably even into the richest places of the province, and he shall do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. He shall disperse among them the plunder, the spoil, and the riches, and he shall devise his plans against the strongholds. So this king of the north is going to come in peaceably, but become very rich. Again, if you go to the Vatican, are you going to find that? You're going to find very rich and ornate. You don't even have to go there. You can go to a poor city in Mexico or South America, and at the square, you're going to find a cathedral. Out in the streets, the people are poor. Inside, it's what? Very ornate, very rich. They've gathered the riches in multiple ways. It has a man in its head. Daniel 11, talking about this king, it talks about he does this, he does that, he does this. You know, it goes on. And there in this horn, the little horn, were eyes like the eyes of a man and a mouth speaking pompous words. We have the man of sin. That's a man. The beast, it says he does... Here it does, and who dwell on the earth will worship him whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. So it's got a man at its head. Right now we have Pope Francis. Thankfully, I'm nobody's judge. And I don't know if any popes are going to be in heaven or if any popes are not going to be in heaven. That's God's job, not mine. All right? But I want you to notice when Pope Francis comes in, Time magazine, this is their cover. Is it a pope for the Catholic Church? Nope. It is a pope for a new world. The media looks at this man as the primary world leader. Remember, he's the one that gives State of the World address. It leads attacks against the South, against Islam. He shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the South with a great army. That's Daniel 11:25. At the appointed time he shall return and go towards the south, but it shall not be like the former or the latter. Oh, why were there crusades? Because the Pope called for the crusades. And they sent wave after wave of armies down to take Jerusalem. Why was there a Holy League during the Ottoman Empire? Because the Pope united the European powers into a Holy League to fight against Islam. Yes, over and over, the Pope calls for war against Islam. And he already has, just a couple of years ago, against radical Islam. Predicted time of supremacy or rule. In Daniel 11:24, it says he's only got control for a time. In Daniel 7 and 8, it told us how long that was. Daniel 7, and the saint shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. Well, time is 1 year. Times in the Hebrew is 2 years and a half a year, 3.5 years. Continuing. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle that she might fly into wilderness to her place where she is nourished for a time, time, and a half a times. Oh, same terms as in Daniel. But Revelation gives it a couple other ways. Then the woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Well, 1,260 days happens to be, if you're good at math, about 3.5 years. He, the beast, was given authority to continue for 42 months. That just happens to be 3.5 years. But now get this. 42 months times 30 equals 1,260. But that's only a 360-day year, so that's a symbolic year. That's not a full literal year. So it's a reference back to this day for a year thing again. And if you take this 42 months as 1,260 years, you now get the length of papal supremacy. And what we find is Vigilus ascends the papal chair in 538 under the military protection of Belisarius. Okay, Belisarius is Justinian's general. Now, what's interesting, Emperor Justinian in 533 declares that the Pope is the leader of all Christianity in the Roman Empire. But there's a problem. It's not implemented yet. Why? Because some Arian Christians, which are followers of a guy by the name of Arius, have control of Rome, and the Bishop of Rome is not welcome in Rome. Little embarrassing. And so Belisarius, Justinian's general, in 538 goes in and takes out the resistance and puts the Pope in charge as the emperor wants. That gives him both military support and supposedly Christian support. Church and state mix. 1,260 years later brings us to 1798. At that time, Berthier, Napoleon's general, made his entrance into Rome. He abolished the papal government and established a secular one in its place. Okay. So, we have, during that 1,260 years, we have the Crusades against the Ottoman and the Islamic Turks, and most of the Reformation and all that kind of stuff happened in the 1,260 years. Characteristic 8. This power would claim to change times and laws, or to fight against the covenant in Daniel 11:28. And Daniel 7, he shall intend to change times and law. Does the papacy claim that? And this is the Ecclesiastical Dictionary. I think it's Ferrari's Ecclesiastical Dictionary. The Pope is of so great of authority and power that he can modify, change, or interpret even divine law. Oh, do they claim they can change God's law? Mm-hmm. Right there you have it. The Pope can modify divine law since his power is not of man, but of God, and he acts as vicegerent of God upon earth with most ample power of binding and loosing his sheep. Thing of it is, Jesus said that not one jot or tittle would pass from God's law. God said he doesn't change. But they claim they can change it. I'm going to stick with the Bible, actually, for me. Convert's Catechism and Catholic Doctrine, Peter Gearman. Question, which day is the Sabbath? Answer, Saturday is the Sabbath day. Question, why do we observe Sunday instead of Saturday? Answer, we observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church changed the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday. Sorry, that got bumped off the slide again. Now, we'll back up to that. Notice they don't hide from it. Now, I don't know what you're going to do about it, but as a Christian, I chose to follow the Bible. That's why I'm a Sabbath-keeping Christian. You're going to have to figure that out on your own. But they claim to change God's law, and I just don't think they can. Number 9, speaks great words or blasphemy. And all Daniel 7, 2 Thessalonians, Daniel 11, Revelation 13 all have this. Then the king shall do according to his own will. He shall exalt and magnify himself above every god and shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods. And this is Daniel 11. He shall regard neither the God of his fathers nor the desire of women. That could be a reference to the celibacy right there. Nor regard any god, for he shall exalt himself above them all. So yeah, he's going to be blaspheming. The little horn. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High. The man of sin who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So he's going to sit in God's temple pretending to be God. I will actually show you a picture from the Vatican that illustrates that. The beast of Revelation, and he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. Now, what is blasphemy? John 10, when a man claims to be God, or when a man claims to forgive sin. If I was going to stand up here and tell you that I'm God and I can forgive your sins, you should leave right away. All right? It would be blasphemy. However, if Jesus claims that, it's not blasphemy if he really is God. All right? And so they were going to kill him for this, except I'm counting on Jesus being God and being able to forgive sin. Without that, I'm in big trouble. I need a Savior and a forgiver, okay? Let's see. Does the papacy claim to be God or to forgive sin? Well, actually, we find out they claim both of them. This is Prompta Bibliotheca, papal document. The Pope is of so great of dignity and so exalted that he is not a mere man, but as it were God and the vicar of God. The Pope is called most holy because he's rightfully presumed to be such, as if he were God, huh? He is likewise the divine monarch and supreme emperor and king of kings. That's a title for Jesus. Hence the Pope was crowned with a triple crown as king of heaven and of earth and of the lower regions. So he's king of hell, this earth, and heaven. Where does that leave God? The Pope is as it were God on earth, sole sovereign of the faithful of Christ, chief king of kings, having plenitude of power. The Pope is not only the representative of Jesus Christ, but he is Jesus Christ himself, hidden under the flesh. That's pretty direct. And there are a lot of these kind of statements. Now, I told you I'd show you a picture where he's sitting in the temple as if he were God. Now, in the Old Testament, the judgment seat is between the two cherubim on the Ark of the Covenant, right? The Pope is seated on a throne between two what? Cherubim, two angels. In Revelation, Jesus returns in the great white throne judgment. That's the judgment seat between the cherubim on the Ark of the Covenant. He's seated on a great white throne, which is the New Testament imagery. And in Revelation, when you have the throne room, there are 4 living creatures, and there are 4 living men on the upper platform around the throne. They've taken Old and New Testament imagery and combined it. Wow. But that's what he did. I'd fire the art department for that one if I was at the Vatican. But as you're going to find, that's not the only thing that they've done. Rebutting a belief widely shared by Protestants and a growing number of Roman Catholics, Pope John Paul II on Tuesday dismissed the widespread idea that one can obtain forgiveness directly from God and exhorted Catholics to confess more often to their priest. Why would you need to confess to your priest? I actually go straight to God. Things don't get lost in transition that way. Here we go. Seek where you will through heaven and earth, and you will find but one created being who can forgive the sinner, who can free him from the chains of hell. That extraordinary being is the priest, the Roman Catholic priest. Yes, beloved brethren, the priest raises his hand, he pronounces the word of absolution. In an instant, quick as a flash of light, the chains of hell are burst asunder, and the sinner becomes a child of God. So great is the power of the priest that the judgments of heaven itself are subject to his decision. Remember, they claim they can tell that they're king of heaven, earth, and the lower regions? They can now tell God what to do. Really? I am so glad that God is the judge, no human being. Absolutely every priest has been just as honest as could be, right? No. Suppose the priest gets mad at me and refuses to forgive me. Does that mean God can't forgive me? Well, what if I just move to a different parish and I make some really good offerings? Now the priest likes me in the new parish, and that priest forgives me, and the other one said I can't be forgiven. Which one will God obey? That's why I'm really glad God's the judge. It would persecute the saints. Daniel 11:33, yet for many days they shall fall by sword and by flame. Oh yeah. He shall persecute the saints of the Most High, Daniel 7:25. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, Revelation 13. And you know, when Daniel talks about people being thrown in the flames, it's in the very point in history when they were burning heretics that disagreed with the papal system. Daniel's details never miss. Yep, and why was it so many people fled the old world and came to the new world? Because they were looking for religious freedom to get away from the persecution of the church in the old world. Pope John Paul asks for forgiveness for centuries of wrong. And you say, well, Tim, you're just making all this stuff up. No, Pope John Paul II actually admitted to all this stuff. Take a look. The Pope says the Roman Catholic Church must mark the year 2000 by acknowledging its member sins, including intolerance in the name of religion. As the millennium draws to a close, the Church should become more fully conscious of the sinfulness of her children, recalling all those times in history when they departed from the Spirit of Christ. The letter then goes on to acknowledge things like the Spanish Inquisition, the Crusades, and martyrs who died through the centuries. Oh, so you should mark the year 2000 by making a change, right? I can tell you, I've met some priests who did not get that memo. I was down in Ecuador. Beautiful country. But it's Roman Catholic by constitution, which means the local Catholic priest has great political authority. And we were doing a Bible seminar, and we were doing a vacation Bible school and some health screening and a bunch of other things. And we were in this little city, well, not so little city, and beautiful place in the mountains of Ecuador. And we had rented about 2/3 of the rooms in this little hotel, and they had a banquet hall that did weddings and stuff like that in a courtyard. And we'd rented the whole thing so we could do these Bible meetings and the VBS and all. It was just a gorgeous setting. And we were there for about 3 weeks. About 2 weeks into it, we found out the priest was upset with us. Here's how. Sometime around 2 in the morning, the hotel owner gets a very urgent knock at the door. She opens the door and finds herself facing 4 armed men. And at gunpoint, they tell her to get the keys to her hotel rooms. They get the keys, and they come in, and they hit about half of our team. They missed my room, but they got my daughter's. Here's what my daughters woke up to. They hear some noise in the hallway, and they hear the hotel owner, whom they know by this time. They're only niños, leave them alone, children, my teenage daughters. And they hear the command to open the door, and the keys go into their door. The door opens, and somebody hits the light, and men with assault rifles come across the room aiming at their faces. Would that be a friendly way of waking up? My younger daughter, who was a teenager, but she pulls the sheets over her head. And a few moments later, as my daughter squeezed into my room, my older daughter said, and she pulled sheets over her head like sheets will stop bullets. And my younger daughter says, yeah, but I'd never see him coming, would I? In the morning, we talked with each other, and the hotel owner said, hey, those were all police officers. The priest sent them. They put a seal on the front doors of the hotel, meaning that if anybody broke the seals, we would go to jail. They left the back door open. We could leave. Legally, we could leave, but we couldn't come in the front. We talked it over, and he decided we didn't feel like quitting. We figured if Paul could use being a Roman citizen, I could use being an American citizen. You see, Ecuador is negotiating a change of currency from sucre, their paper money, to U.S. dollars. If you go to Ecuador today, all you have is U.S. dollars. But this was just at the transition point. And I figured they didn't want an international scene with American citizens at this point. So I said, we're going to go down to the U.S. Embassy. Made no secret about it. I called for a taxi. The taxi picks me up. My wife and I get in. We figured we're being watched. I go down to the U.S. Embassy. I go in. I talked to him about something else. I never told him what went on. I didn't want him to tell me to go home. We came back up there. Now remember, the back door's open. We put a guy with a little sign out front. Front doors are sealed. Back door is open. Come on in. We're still in business. People all went around the back alley, came in, and we continued. And they decided not to mess with us. We finished the meeting. As soon as we left, they took the seal off the door, and the hotel could go back in operation. A year later, I was in another city in Ecuador, and I watched the Catholic priests run a street demonstration, creating a mob to try and get me kicked out of town. I didn't even talk about this stuff. All I was doing was talking about Bible truth and talking about going straight to Jesus for your forgiveness. They couldn't take that. The reason we finished that meeting was the Catholic businessman we'd rented a big hall from said, the priest came to him and said, cancel your meeting with those evangelicals right now. I'm going to start a religious meeting in that hall tonight. And the Catholic businessman looked at his priest and said, but I'm a man of my word. I gave my word to them and I will not break my word. And he backed us and we finished that meeting. I told you God has a people in the system. So yeah, they will still persecute when they have a chance. Deadly wound healed in worldwide power. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his head was deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. These are just some of the newspapers from 1929 when that wound was basically healed. Here's what the San Francisco Chronicle said. The Roman question tonight was a thing of the past, and the Vatican was at peace with Italy. In affixing the autographs to the memorable document healing the wound, extreme cordiality was displayed on both sides. Healing the wound. The papacy got the Vatican back again. They once again had both church and political power, church and state. They lost it in 1798. Now they got it. You know who signed that document with the papal representative? A guy by the name of Mussolini. Oh yeah, they've dealt with some really good characters along the line. And then John Paul comes in and he really ramps up the authority and the popularity of the Catholic Church. Take a look at what Pope Francis, 2015, he went to the United Nations and all the world went crazy. And here's what the Huffington Post said that day. But shrewdly, methodically, and with a showman's flair, the soft-spoken 78-year-old Argentinian Jesuit priest named Pope Francis showed Thursday that he is running to become president of the planet, and they were ready to endorse him. Do you think the media would endorse Trump to be world president today? No, but they'd still back this guy. Diverse or different from other kingdoms. The 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the first ones and shall subdue 3 kings. The king of the north is both a spiritual and a religious power. It's the ones before him were primarily religious. Political. This one is primarily religious. And so, yes, it is different. And there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them before 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And he shall subdue 3 kings. So what you have, the Heruli, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals of the barbarian tribes were eliminated, 3 of them, because they were of Arian Christianity. They were following Arius. So, yep, that matches. 3 of them were taken out to make room. Then there's 666 from Revelation. A lot of people get excited over this one. I think it's the least important of all. But we'll take a look at it. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. There is a title that the Pope goes by in the donation of Constantine and hundreds of Latin documents afterwards. Some people say it was inscribed in his mitre. There's no proof of that. I wouldn't say that. But I do know in one document after another, it shows up as his title in Latin. You take the Latin form, Latin words, V's 5, I's 1, C's 100, A 0, R 0, I 1, V 5, S 0, that's 112. Phi, F 0, I 1, L 50, I 1, I 1, 53. D, 500, E 0, I 1, total it up, it's 666. So yeah, that even matches. The dragon gives him his power, his throne, and great authority. Revelation 13:2. Well, the dragon is ultimately Satan, but it's also Rome. In Revelation 12, it says, and the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. When Jesus was born, did they try and kill him? Yes. Herod sent what kind of soldiers into Bethlehem to kill the babies? Roman soldiers. When Jesus dies at the cross, what kind of soldiers were killing him? Roman soldiers. Satan uses Rome to do his dirty work. And so, who gives power and authority to the papal system? Here we have Professor LaBianca, professor of history at the University of Rome. He says, to the succession of the Caesars came the succession of the pontiffs in Rome. When Constantine left Rome, he gave his seat, his throne, to the pontiff, his capital. Where did that title pontiff comes from? I wouldn't want it as a Christian leader, if you know its history. Here's a Tiberius tax coin. Jesus was asked, should you give taxes to Caesar? And he says, give me a coin. He says, whose face is on it? Caesar's. That's Tiberius's picture. But if you were to flip it over, you would find the title that he goes by, Pontiff Maxim, or Maxim Pontiff. Oh, let's see. The guy who's in charge of the Roman Empire when it kills Jesus is called the Pontiff, Pontiff Maximus. And so now the Christian leader decides to call himself Pontiff Maximus. That would not be the title I would want. It means the one between God and man. Remember, they think you have to go through them to get forgiveness instead of straight to Jesus. That's where the title comes from. So, marks of identification. Who is this little horn king of the north? Luther, Calvin, Wycliffe, they all taught the same thing, and I find myself in agreement that we have this Catholic system that is the king of the north, little horn, man of sin, beast power. Again, not Roman Catholic people, many of which God calls his people. All right? Always keep it separate. Always keep that separate. If you lump everybody together, thankfully, you're not the judge. God is. Let God separate people based on their hearts. And the good news is, God knows your heart. You know what the bad news is? God knows your heart. Make sure you're honest with him. God's got honest people from all kinds of backgrounds. We're going to find that he even has them within Islam. Yes, we're going to find that in Daniel 11. Now, here's another coin. We have a papal coin. It's from the Vatican City, 1959. Happens to be the year of my birth. On the front side of it, we have Pope John 23, PM, Pontiff Maximus. Notice they use Latin letters and Latin numbers, just like we were using a bit ago. You flip it over, and it says City del Vaticano, and it's got a woman with a cup and a cross. Now, that woman would probably represent, if it was me making it, it would be the bride of Christ, like in Ephesians 5, or Revelation 12, the pure woman, or maybe Mary, the mother of Jesus, called the Queen of Heaven by some Catholics. However, there's some hints on the coin that maybe not. Underneath her feet, I mean, if you have a statue with a name under it, it's usually the person that it's talking about, right? Fides, that's a pagan goddess's name. Not a good idea. Revelation 17. I would suggest to you that you actually find a description of that picture in Revelation 17. I would not use that picture on my coin if I'm a Christian group. Let's take a look at Revelation 17. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which is full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. And on her forehead a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. This is a woman with a cup in her hand, and she's been killing God's people. And the cup is full of abominations. Well, we have 2 women in Revelation, the pure woman of Revelation 12 and the harlot of Revelation 17. The Revelation of 17 woman has the cup in the hand, and the papal coin has the cup in the hand. However, it tells us the cup is full of abominations in Revelation 17. What might that be? Ezekiel 8 tells us that one. So he brought me to the door of the north gate of the Lord's house, and to my dismay, women were sitting there weeping for Tammuz. Then he said to me, have you seen this, O son of man? Turn again, you will see greater abominations than these. Weeping for Tammuz is an abomination. Tammuz is the son of the sun god. His mother is a goddess of fertility. She gets hit by a ray of light. She has a miraculous birth, gives virgin birth to this young man who is Tammuz, the son of the sun god. He goes off on a wild boar hunt, is killed in the wild boar hunt as a young man, and they weep for him for 40 days, and he comes back to life at the spring equinox. Does that sound vaguely familiar? 40 days of Lent going into the Easter. Oh, his mother in many of the cultures was a lady by the name of Ishtar, from what we get Easter. Yeah. 40 days of Lent. Now, I used to pastor down in a place called Southern Louisiana. Southern Louisiana, and it's just not New Orleans that has Mardi Gras. All over Southern Louisiana has Mardi Gras with parades and all that. And Fat Tuesday is the wildest party of them all, and they go crazy, and they know that on Wednesday they're going to go to church, they're going to get ashes on their forehead and be forgiven for all their sins on Fat Tuesday, and they're planning to do it all over again next year. What kind of repentance and forgiveness is that? Not so good. But it's the same as Carnival in South America and all the rest of it. All right? That's where it's from, and God called it an abomination then. But there was a greater one. So he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and there at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs towards the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east, and they were worshiping the sun towards the east. Somebody help me for a moment. Which way is east here? I forgot to think about that. That's east, sort of? Okay. So here's what happens. When you walk into the temple of God, you're facing west, and you have the altar of sacrifice, and beyond it, when you get into the temple, there's a table of showbread on the north side, and the 7-branch candlestick, and then there's the altar of incense, the curtain, and behind it is God's judgment seat. You're facing west. These guys get to the door of God's temple, and they turn around and bend over, giving their rear ends to God, worshiping the rising sun. God didn't like it. He called it the greater abomination. So why do I point that out? I just suggest that you take a close look at what's in the cup. The rising sun. They put the greater abomination in it. It matches Revelation 17. I'd fire the art department, but they do so much of that stuff, it seems like they know what they're doing. The coins all along the line depict a knowledge. It wasn't accidental. So, we had the Counter-Reformation come around. Antichrist is not the papacy in the late 1500s and 1600s. Alcazar, he taught preterism. Daniel and Revelation are historical. They're not prophetic at all. It all happened in the past. Don't worry about it. Another Jesuit priest named Ribera taught futurism. Daniel and Revelation are all in the future. So what does the church teach today? Both of them, as long as the heat's off them. Literally, I've heard them do it. Daniel and Revelation, they're talking about what happened way back in the past when Antiochus Epiphanes, but he represents a bad dude that's going to come right at the end of time. And in the whole big hole in the middle, there's no prophecy at all. It doesn't impact us at all. It doesn't refer to us. Yeah. That's what they teach. Well, we gave you a brief overview of who the King of the North is. So at this point, I disbelieve papal-led Christianity is the King of the North. Now notice I said papal-led Christianity because we're going to find out there's a lot of powers that unite with them, just like at the Crusades and just like at the Ottoman time with the Holy League. Daniel never misses. Our next presentation is the role of the U.S. in this growing conflict. And yes, I believe it has a role. Some people say it doesn't, so I'm going to describe both of them, and you can think about that and make your own decisions. Then on Monday night, we're going to be looking at the role of Israel, and Tuesday night, the role of Islam, and that's going to be the longer one, all right?